Hi everybody, this is Lara with your weekly video for Bitcoin for the week ending Friday 27th of February 2023. The wave count overall is still very bullish. The minimum expectation, not a target, for the next bull run when it comes is expected to be above 300,000. It could go as potentially as high as 2.5 million or so. I really don't like calculating targets for cryptocurrencies. I'd rather use Elliott wave analysis and classic analysis to guide it, to identify the end of these third waves. For the short term, I expect the pullback that's moved lower this week is going to continue for a few more weeks, and I think it's most likely we'll find support about the upper edge of the black channel. That low of December 2018 above 3,000 is expected to remain intact. The low of 15,480 is expected to remain intact. On the weekly chart, Bitcoin sees the end of a second wave at primary degree within a third wave at cycle degree. Elliott wave is fractal. You have to fit the weekly chart into the monthly chart, and I updated that recently, and I link back to that with text, charts and video. The link is at the top of every week's analysis for you. And so within cycle wave 3, here is the end of primary 1, the end of primary 2, and now primary 3 in an early stage. If this is wrong, my degree of labelling here may be too high. I might need to move it down 1 degree. We'll see how this unfolds in coming weeks. Within primary 3, it may only subdivide as an impulse. Intermediate 1 looks like a beautifully perfect 5-wave impulse. Intermediate 2 is expected to continue lower and may end at support at the upper edge of this channel, which I'm copying over from the weekly chart. Draw it on a semi-log scale from the all-time high to the first major swing high in this bear market here. Place a copy on this first major swing low. Price found resistance here, broke through, back test of support, moving up and away. Another very typical deeper back test of support is expected to be in its early stages. Intermediate 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 15,480.69. Let's take a look at the daily chart. The low down here, the end of primary wave 2. Is this point down here. Here is intermediate wave 1, a really good looking 5-wave impulse, minor 1, minor 2 an expanded flat, minor 3 a beautiful looking impulse with a nice curved middle to it. This look is so very typical for cryptocurrencies. Minor 4 also an expanded flat. There is no alternation in structure between 2 and 4. There's alternation in depth. 2 is deep, 4 is shallow. Alternation is a guideline, not a rule. And then finally, minor wave 5, relatively short. This trend line is going to be very important. As price approached it, a little bit of congestion around here, and then a back test of support, not absolutely perfectly at the line, it's important to note, but really close. Moving up and away, I expect intermediate 2 may find support there. If it's long-lasting enough, that could be close to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio, the logarithmic function of it anyway, at 18,657.09. Intermediate 2 is most likely to subdivide as a zigzag, so that's how I'll label it at the start. It could be any Elliott wave corrective structure, though, except for a triangle. So it's important to have a bit of open-mindedness and flexibility when corrections are underway. I may need to relabel intermediate 2 as we start to have an idea as to what structure it is. And I may also need to use alternate wave counts to consider different Elliott wave structures here. So far I'm labelling intermediate 2 as an incomplete zigzag. If it's a zigzag, minor A must subdivide as a 5-wave structure, and 1 and 2 could be complete. 3 could be moving lower. A third wave could be ready to move lower if this little minuet 2 here is done in the next few days. On the weekly chart, the previous swing high before the prior all-time high, this is the end of intermediate 3 for both of my wave counts. My main wave count sees 4 and 5 to complete primary 1, but what if primary 1 is incomplete? Intermediate 3 over here. Intermediate 4 could be an expanded flat over here. Intermediate 5 could be in its early stages. One of the biggest problems now with this wave count is the duration of intermediate 4. At 81 weeks, it is substantially longer than cycle wave 2. 2 degrees higher which lasted 51 weeks. So this wave count has a really low probability, and I really am only publishing it because it's such a popular wave count online. I want to follow it, and I want to outline to you why, in my judgment, it's considered to have a low probability. This wave count sees primary 1 incomplete. When it's over, primary 2 lasts a bear market to last maybe a year, should then begin. But again, this wave count I expect has a low probability. I'm just going to really quickly go back to my main weekly chart and outline for this one, when primary 3 is over, I'll expect primary 4 to then begin, and unless it's a triangle, I'll expect it to be more brief than primary wave 2. Primary 2 lasted 53 weeks, so just over a year. I won't expect the upcoming bear market for primary 4 to be as long-lasting as that. I'll expect it to be much more brief. That's because in Bitcoin's price history, with the sole exception of a big triangle, the fourth waves are almost always more brief than their counterpart second waves. And even if it's a triangle, it'll be wave A, which is the strongest, sharpest portion, and that'll be over pretty quickly. So, and then finally primary 5, I expect to be over really quickly and move a lot longer, or a lot further than primary 3, to be basically a vertical upward movement. Not there yet. On the weekly chart, off this low, we have bullish divergence between price and both RSI and money flow, showing it a little bit more clearly. There was bearish divergence at the high, now there's bullish divergence at the low, and RSI reached oversold back here. That's only the second time this has happened in Bitcoin's price history on the weekly chart, and that previous instance was associated with a low that is sustained to this day, so a sustainable low. So the probability that this low is going to be sustained is looking very high. There's no bullish candlestick reversal pattern off this low, but we do start to see some strength off the low when we move up into this upward movement here. Now we have a completed red candlestick. It's not a bearish reversal pattern. It has a slight decline in volume, so a little bit of downward movement for the week, which is essentially what we were expecting, but it's not particularly dramatic. On balance volume has no new range, no signal here. ADX on the weekly chart ever so slightly increasing, still indicating an upward trend. RSI neutral, money flow neutral, stochastics overbought, ATR continuing to decline as price moves higher, essentially now flattening off really as price moves up through this portion here, finding resistance still about 24,500. Above that, there's really strong resistance above at about 29,000. On the daily chart, we see this double bearish divergence between price and RSI and price and money flow at that high. No bearish candlestick pattern at the high, but we do have some bearish upper wicks, and now starting to see a little bit of downward movement. The moving average situation very close to full bore bullish, the short above the mid, above the long, the mid and long positively sloped, and prices above both of them. Resistance, expect that to hold reasonably around about there, about 24,500. Look out for next support below, 20,200. Volume is showing some push this week for downward movement. It's above the 50-period moving average here, the 50-day moving average. Volume pushing price lower, so that supports the Elliott wave count. I'd expect to see that in the early stages of an intermediate degree correction. On balance volume gave a bearish signal here, back here. Prices moved lower since then, so that signal could now be resolved. No new signal at this time from on-balance volume. At the daily chart level, ADX is declining. There's no clear trend. The previous upward trend reached very extreme, which is pretty normal for Bitcoin, and now no clear trend. That supports the Elliott wave count. RSI neutral, money flow neutral, stochastics neutral, ATR showing a little bit of an increase as price started to fall, and now essentially flattening off as prices starting to consolidate here. That's all for me this week with your Bitcoin analysis. I hope everyone had a really awesome weekend, and thank you all for your support over the last while I've been doing Bitcoin. As that bear market unfolded, the membership dropped, and I hope it's going to start to pick up as interest in this picks up. Sadly, that's the opposite of what people need. They need to be more interested when it's at lows, because that's a buying opportunity. And when it's at highs, that's a selling opportunity. So I hope you will stick through with me for that. Thank you for your support.